video down and like start right around here or something like that, just to kind of make it nice and clean for anyone who wants to watch later. All right, let's talk MSI. Like I said earlier, Sandy's out for the night, which means no flight check. So I'm just gonna ramble on for a little bit, as you guys probably know that I usually do. So I figured we could talk about a little MSI, could talk a little off season, some other exciting things, maybe get into the CS2 team and other things of that fun sort. And we'll keep it pretty brief, I imagine. I kind of want to just keep this around maybe 15, 20 minutes at most. Yes, I am streaming from a real live PC. What's up, Arkham? we actually got things working. I have an actual mic. I can actually use my normal, legit, like, keyboard and mouse. It's quite nice. I will say. I finally also figured out the delay issue. So I think if you type, I should be able to reply to you in like a fairly normal amount of a normal time. FlyQuest wins MSI end of video. True! But, you know, sometimes we like to discuss the other contenders just to see where they'll place, you know? It kind of makes it a little fun in that aspect. Don't want to... Otherwise, you kind of get this Max Verstappen effect in F1 where he just wins all the time. And, like, it's fun and it's exciting and it's very, very impressive. But you don't really... you're not inclined to watch the rest of the field too much. And you got to give justice to the rest of the field, you know? So yeah, let's talk MSI for real quick. So you had 4 different tiers of brackets that teams could get picked out of. You had tier 1, which was pretty much all the first seeds from all the 4 major regions, per usual. So you got Genji from Korea, Billy Gaming from China. Why are you... Hello? Okay. We'll try this again. But Billy from China, you got Team Liquid from North America, and then you have G2 from Europe, right? And so, all pretty big contenders, usually somewhat in some way, shape, or form, the contenders to win. And then you have Tier 2, which was basically most of the second seeds from all the 4 major regions. So in this case, Korea was T1, China was top esports, Fnatic was number 2 from Europe, and then you had the ever lovely FlyQuest to be the number 2 representative from North America. And we'll get into them here in a little bit and why they're the tournament favorites, wink wink. Third tier, you had you start seeing some of the more wildcard regions, I guess. Their representatives, so these are their first seeds from there. I guess I should say emerging regions, but they're not really emerging anymore, you know? Like, PCS has been around for a while, GAM's been around for a while. Like, they're not emerging so much anymore. But you got PSG Talon, which there's some big notable names on here that have been around for a while. GAM Esports, which you got Kiaya and Levi, that's cool. VCS is not what it's been. I don't think we're going to get too into the win trading and gambling scandals that were going on over there. But VCS is not what it used to be. You got Loud, same old team that's kind of been dominating Brazil for the past little while. They're just very, very good. And then you got Jose Dioto. Jose Dioto's back on the international stage. You love to see it. And he's in the same group as FlyQuest, so you may get a little Jose Dioto versus FlyQuest matchup, which would be kind of fun and exciting in that aspect. Does Jose Dioto get his revenge for getting kicked off the team? Or does FlyQuest show the reason why he deserved to go back to LLA? We'll see. Yeah, I think overall, let's look at the group specifically. I think the way the group's kind of played out, Group A is probably the most exciting. But even then, it's not really all that exciting. It's really just because of how close Fly and PSG are probably going to be. Because you're looking at Group B, I don't see Loud versus Top Esports really being all that close. And then GAM is... Here's a question for anyone who actually is live right now. And I'll kind of hypothesize out loud too. But who is the worst team at this tournament? Is it Estral or is it GAM? And be honest here. Like, think about it. Like, normally GAM is very, very good. And normally VCS is very, very good, right? But this is a roster with 3 brand new players that came in as of like 4 weeks ago. And then you have Estral, who I think has looked solid, but it's also the weakest region, right? So I would be curious to see what people think of who is the actually worst team at this tournament. But yeah, so Fnatic versus GAM, that should not be any big issue. Theoretically, Loud versus GAM, I'm giving it to Loud. That should be a solid win for them, but I'll be curious to see if GAM can put up any resistance whatsoever. Fnatic versus Top Esports, I'm just giving it to Top Esports. Europe and Fnatic in general, just the bane of their existence is China and Chinese teams. So there you go. I'm just going to go ahead and say Top cleans out the group and qualifies that way. Fnatic, though, should have no problem bouncing back against Loud, I imagine. That could actually be a fun one, I would imagine, but I think at the end of the day, it's kind of going to look like what most Korean teams did to most Western teams back in the day. Like, I think maybe there can be some early game shenanigans that Loud can pull out, but then Fnatic's just going to have general better macro and better play towards the end of the game, and should end up closing it out and making it the main group stage, right? Or I guess main bracket stage. So that's pretty much it for Group B. Let's get more into the Group A, though, the one I think that's more fun. You can't even name a single player from Estral. Is there anyone notable? I mean, Jose Dioto, Cody and Ackerman are probably the biggest ones, I would say, along with Jose Dioto. Ackerman's been around for quite a while. Cody's been around quite a while. If I remember right, Cody was on the Infinite Esports team that actually took a game off of EDG back in 2017, if I'm remembering correctly. That or maybe it's Kodo Paco. You know what? We're here. Let me look really quick. Let me look really, really fast. Because I know it was 2017 because it was the very first time Plans was ever done. Let's go to the play-in stage. Where are you at? Oh. You know what? JK, I think it was 2018. My league history is showing. I'm sorry. All right, yeah, there we go. The Infinity. Oh, it was Kodo Paco. Okay, never mind. I'm a fraud. I don't know what I'm talking about. You should never listen to me. Yeah, I don't know my league history. Okay, never mind. Either way, I promise you, though, Cody has been around for a while, though, and he's a semi-respectable mid laner for the LLA region. Yeah, it's Jose Dioto's team. So, having said that, though, they get the wonderful, wonderful pleasure of playing against T1. Cody gets to play against Faker. I don't know who Zothv is, but he gets to face Zeus. Jose Dioto gets to play against Owner. Snacker and Ackerman get to play against Gumayusi and Keria. Like, they may be a tad bit outside of their weight range, you know? This kind of featherweight versus heavyweight, and it's going to take a lot of work if you're going to upset T1, right? Especially, like, it's one thing if it was a best of one, right? Like, if there was, like, betting statistic odds, I would probably put, like, I'd be, like, there's a world where I'd be willing to give 5% to Estral, right? Because it's a best of one. You never know. T1 could try something wacky. They could try and get into the groove of things, and then, I mean, maybe even Estral does something cheesy and T1's caught off guard. You can take a game. That's fine. It's a best of 3, though. Unfortunately, you're just going straight to the loser bracket. So, sorry. I'm just going T1 2-0 here. I can see Jose being comparable to Levi, so Gam might be a bit worse. Yeah, fair. I think I would give it to Gam being the worst team at this region currently. I think Estral is actually semi-okay. We'll see. I mean, they're not going to get out of this group looking okay, but they're semi-okay, I promise. So having said that, we got all the other matches taken out of the way because everything else is, like, really, really not close. I think the big thing is, like, maybe Fnatic Loud could be somewhat interesting over here. And I guess really both Fnatic matches can be interesting. Fnatic can put up fights. Or Loud can put up a fight against Fnatic, rather, and Fnatic can put up a fight against Top Esports. Like, those can be interesting. Am I expecting them to be interesting? Not really. Hello, Andre. Glad you could hop in really quick. I'm just ranting. Well, not ranting. I'm just kind of... It's kind of ranting. Well, no, it's not angry. I'm just rambling. Yeah, not ranting, rambling. I'm rambling. So, if you want to just hang out for a little bit, by all means, don't think I'll be too long on this. I really wanted to just kind of highlight the FlyQuest versus PSG matchup while also kind of, like, covering the rest of MSI and what kind of my guesses and expectations are going to look like. So, like I said, I think both Fnatic matches can be interesting. I don't expect them to be interesting. And then you got Estral versus T1, which is David versus Goliath. Goliath pretty much wins that every time. Sorry. I know the storybooks say otherwise, but Goliath just should smash this. If anything, it is really, really cool that Estral gets this chance to play against them, because I think a lot of these guys have not gotten the chance to play against Faker. So, where is NoxCat? I have the door shut currently because I think my wife is home making just like kind of like settling in and getting prepped and relaxed. So I wanted to make sure no extra audio was caught out. So he's probably out there chilling with her. Maybe towards the end of the stream, I'll go out and grab him real quick. One more question. Are you going to enjoy all the lane swaps? Okay. Let me answer the one lane swap question really quick, and then I'm going to get into this Fly versus PSG really quick, because like I said, I'm trying to get this on YouTube. Am I going to enjoy the lane swaps? If it is something where, because I think G2 had one where it was like 6 minutes in or something, or maybe 4 minutes in, where they made the lane swap after the initial waves hit, and they already had laned for a little bit, that's fine. I'm cool with that, because there's an intellectual decision being made there saying, hey, this matchup is more beneficial if we put our duo lane against this current solo laner, and then you can punish them and then continue to make map movements around that way. That's fun, that's interesting, and that can be even exciting because it's a change in normal game pace. If the games are only lane swaps starting off from the moment you get out onto the Rift, no, I am not going to enjoy the lane swaps. Please do not have that be what this MSI is. It is going to be miserable otherwise. Curly, I don't know if you wanted to hop in or not. I can hop into Discord and you can join the voice channel. If not, you can sit around and chill too. Let me know. DM me. I'm literally about to get into Fly versus PSG. I don't know if you want to join in on that. So, but yeah. I think in general, if the lane swaps are kind of stuff that are like every other game maybe, or even if they are every game, but if they're done in interesting ways where it's not even always where the duo lane is going top side, maybe it's sometimes the bot side's going to the mid lane swapping down the bot. Like, if teams are keeping it fresh and interesting and you're having to think on your toes to watch, I'm kind of cool with it. Okay, you're going to just chill? That's cool. So, yeah, as long as it's along those lines for lane swaps, I'm cool with it. But please don't go back to what it was back in like whatever it was. I think season 8 or 7, whatever it was, where it was just perma lane swaps and no one even tried laning against each other for the first like 10 minutes. That crap was boring. All right, FlyQuest versus PSG. Let's go over the rosters really quick for PSG and Fly. Some big, well, I shouldn't say big names. Notable names. I should say notable names on PSG Talon. Azhi, waiting for the broadcast to say that name. I don't know how to say that. Junja, Maple, Betty, Woody, all pretty notable, I would say. They've been around for a while. They're all pretty respected players in the region. Maple especially is very historic. Betty has been around for a while as well. I think 2015 Flash Wolves was the first time internationally I saw Betty. Woody's been around for a while, so they're all pretty notable, right? And then on the FlyQuest side, you've got Bwipo, Inspired, Jensen, Masu, and Busio. We all know them. This is a FlyQuest-centered podcast channel. Like, we don't really need to go over them too much, right? I will be honest in the fact that I have not really watched any PCS. I did listen to Making the Rounds with Emily Rand and Kelsey Moser a little bit, in which case something that they were talking about is Inspired and Junjia have somewhat similar play styles in terms of how they jungle. And what she was referring to in that aspect was that they both are very retake-centric junglers. And the way she explained that was basically after like lanes have been pushed out and enemy teams are going for the resets, that is typically when Inspired, and in this case with Junjia, like to go for major objectives, aka the Drake or Grubs, whatever it may be, right? And so that's how they like to play a lot of the time, is basically this allows Junjia and Inspired to get a lot of their top side or bot side camps, depending on which side of the map they're aiming to target. And basically, it's just like very small, very tight timing windows that they wait for. And you saw Inspired do this a lot in the LCS, basically. You saw it especially in the Cloud9 series. where even though Berserker and Vulcan were actually beating Masu and Busio in lane and forcing them back, basically what you would see happen is that after the lane gets shoved into the tower, Berserker and Vulcan would back, and then basically Inspired would be timing it to basically when they're back and Busio and Masu are coming back to lane, there's a tiny, tiny little gap window where it's like, hey, they're still back in base, you can grab the objective, and then you get out, right? And it kind of lets you just start getting this little incremental stacks of like late game potential going for you, right? And it makes you feel good, it makes you feel better, and also it also kind of evens up the lane states, because even though, like say you're losing a lane, there's less pressure to like, hey, I need to do something here because then we can lose Drake here in a little bit, right? Or like I need to do something here, otherwise I might lose Grubs later, right? So you can just kind of play out the lane a little more casually, which I think is a huge boon for Masu and Busio, who are very green, very young, especially going into this international stage, because it'll be the first time on the international stage for both of them, right? So I think it'll be very interesting, though, because this is how, apparently according to, I think, Kelsey Moser and Emily Rand, this is how Junjio likes to play with this team as well. So going forward, the question will become, okay, so are we going to switch up our play style? Are we going to play more aggressive and then immediately, instead of going for immediate resets where we can get better lane states, are we just going to go take the Dragon or the Drake or the Grubs and then reset, which in turn can give PSG Talon a better lane state and better control of the lane, and maybe further down the line, better control and better roaming opportunities, right? A lot of strategy that you can think about how you want to play around with it. So I'll be very, very curious to see what FlyQuest comes up with. In terms of actual lane-to-lane matchups, Bwipo versus Aji, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I think Bwipo, at least in playoffs, stepped up his laning quite a bit, because as I'm sure a lot of you are aware, I was constantly complaining when referring to the MVP chatter of LCS that I was not very happy with how Bwipo was laning. And not to say he was laning bad, but I felt like he was never pushing his advantages. I thought he could really do more to help influence the game state. And in playoffs, I thought he was doing that a lot more. Unfortunately, he failed a little bit going into the finals, but we don't need to talk about that. I'm going to assume that as long as Bwipo maintains his level of play that he's been showing, I think he should be okay going to Aji. Inspired versus Junja. This, I think, is honestly the big highlight matchup, and I hope the broadcast highlights this going in. I think this whole series right here, this best of 3, is going to be jungle IQ. Just who's the better jungler, who's a smarter jungler, who can set up their lanes to do better. Because I don't really think either of these teams have a lot of heavy firepower. Don't get me wrong, Masu in the late games can really do his job, and he can pump out damage. And Bwipo can be an absolute menace in disrupting enemy teams and what they want to do. But in terms of single individual firepower, even Jensen, right? Jensen's been performing and he's been showing up, but I don't think there's a lot of just big mega single punch, right? It's not your Bins, it's not your Knights, it's not your Elks, etc. Things like that, or even Jackie Loves, right? Honor Zeus, Gumuyusi, stuff like that. It's not people that are really just I will carry this game. Or I guess if you want to, even NBA terms, it's not your Luka Doncic's or your Jokers, your Jokics, stuff like that. So I really do think the series is going to come down to jungle IQ and how the junglers are playing. If one jungler is playing better than the other, I actually think it's going to be jungle diff. It's just whoever's playing better on that day. Because I think more than anything, Jensen is more than capable of handling Maple. He's played against him multiple times, both domestically and internationally, and I don't think Maple really does anything super insane that would be able to expose Jensen, and I don't think Jensen does super anything insane that's going to expose Maple. I think that lane's going to be pretty even. Betty and Woody versus Masu and Busio. This is where it will get a little bit interesting. This is a tough early matchup, I think, for an international appearance from Masu and Busio, because I think Betty is, for his region, a solid bot laner. I think he is good. Obviously, in the grand scheme of things, especially in this tournament, whatever. But I think he can actually put a lot of pressure into Masu and Busio. I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about Woody. And obviously bot lanes were very decided by about how supports play, right? But I think in general, laning-wise, I don't have a super lot of faith in Masu and Busio to do well in lane. And I hope I'm wrong, but I think there's just more experience on the side of Betty and Woody. Now, does that mean I think they're going to get blown out? No, I don't think they're going to get blown out. But I don't think the bot lane is going to find advantages in tiny leads in lane when they probably should be looking for those things. Well, not that they won't be looking, but like when they should be hoping to get those things, right? So I'm going to give the advantage to the bot lane for PSG. I think our mid lane is going to be even. I think our top lane should be in FlyQuest's favor. And then I think the real pivotal point will be Inspired versus Junjia. That will be what's really interesting for me. Having said all of that, let's look at the bracket. You have T1 versus Estral. Like I said, I think T1 should take that. And then at the end of the day, I think this FlyQuest squad is really good. And I think the general knowledge of our top jungle will be able to outweigh that of the knowledge of Junjia and anyone else on that PSG team, right? I'm going to give it 2-1. I think PSG will take a game off of us, mainly because I'm expecting somewhere down the line our bot lane to get exploited in the early game, and it will just make it extremely hard to come back. But in general, I have faith that Inspired and Bwipo will be able to just kind of disrupt how PSG wants to play. And I think Inspired will have probably smarter early game pathing than Junjia. But it will be close. So, having said that, theoretically that means later on in that week, we get the T1 matchup. We play Faker. We play the the past world championships of the world. This will be the first time ever FlyQuest gets to play the legendary T1 squad and the legendary godlike Faker. It's a very exciting time. I know Jensen's played Faker quite a few different times, so there's nothing really new, so to speak, in that aspect, right? But it's still very exciting to be able to say, hey, we played internationally, we played versus T1, we played against Faker. That's always fun and exciting to say, right? It's the exact same reason why, like, I remember seeing on the Reddit threads that Estral fans, like a lot of Hispanic fans, Latin American fans, they were just so excited. It's like we know this matchup is not going to go well for us. It's the fact that we even get to play them that's cool. And you know what? I'm in 100% agreement. The fact that we get to play T1 is just sick. I love it. Having said that, I'm also in the same boat as Latin America fans in that I don't think we win that. It is another David versus Goliath matchup. However, I do think we'll probably do a little bit better than Estral. So let's dive into the T1 matchup a little bit. And again, obviously, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. We may not even beat PSG, but I have faith that we can beat PSG. So Zeus, Owner, Faker, Gumayusi, and Keria, right? This is where it starts getting very interesting. This is where you look at Bwipo and it's like, are you sure you can handle him? Like, I know you talk a big game. Like, I know you look up to 369 and Ben, right? Those are your big respected top laners, but Zeus is a beast in and of himself. Can you handle the heat? And for the most part, I actually do think Bwipo can handle the heat. But here's the thing. Normally what ends up happening is Bwipo will go even or ahead in lane, and then he does a very good job of disrupting enemy teams' movements and like play styles later on in the game. At least that's how he was playing this year in the LCS. I do not think for a moment that Zeus is going to allow that to happen. Oh, please. Okay. You know what? Okay. Arkham brings up a good point in chat, and I'll get into it in a second. Just got to lane swap every game. We'll get into that in a second. But for the time being, let me have my hypotheticals. So, I think in general, Bwipo will be able to handle the heat, but I don't think he's going to get advantages. Inspired versus Owner is another one where okay. Let me put it to you this way. Let me look at all the junglers in this tournament. You have Canyon, Jun, Yike, Umti, Owner, Tien, Razork, Inspired, Junjia. Okay. Damn, dude. This is a stacked jungle tournament. This is insane, actually. I would generally have Inspired ranked as at least in the LCS, he's an S tier jungler, right? On the international stage coming into this tournament, I would have him somewhere in the A range. This is a stacked jungle tournament. So here's the thing, like Bwipo versus Zeus, I don't foresee a world where Bwipo finds and like wins lane and gets advantages and really pushes his agenda against T1, right? Inspired, I think it's unlikely, but there's a world where I think Inspired actually is good enough and he's smart enough to dictate the flow of the game and how he wants to play and get FlyQuest into winning positions. I think he is that good. But it's also owner, right? So I think more than anything, this FlyQuest squad is going to be very pivoted on how well is Inspired playing. I really, really do. If Inspired comes in this tournament playing his ass off and playing like an absolute god, FlyQuest can do well at this tournament. I really, really do. It doesn't matter if the bot lane's learning. It doesn't matter if Bwipo's not able to gain advantages. It doesn't matter if Jensen's just holding lane and just kind of showing up later. If Inspired comes in playing like a god, I think this team can do well. So that's kind of what I'll leave it at for pretty much any of these other junglers, right? Like even Canyon, Jun, Yike, Umti, like, well, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself with Yike and Umti, but like Canyon and Jun, I really, really, really think that Inspired can go toe-to-toe with those guys. Is he favored to win? No. But he can go toe-to-toe with them. And there's times, I'll give him a third of a chance, like a 33% chance. In a 33% of his games, he's going to find advantages to help dictate the flow of the game that he wants. So, yeah. Really, really watch Inspired this tournament. I think this is a crazy stacked jungle tournament. Jensen versus Faker. Very, very historic. A lot of history with this. Has Jensen ever beaten Faker? Trying to think. Did he beat him on Cloud9 back in like 2017? No, right? He went 0-2, I think. I want to say he went 0-2. And then I don't think he ever beat him on Team Liquid. I don't think he... Has he ever had a win? I don't think he... Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think he's ever had a win against Faker. Is he going to get it here? I don't think so, if I'm being honest. Not unless Inspired pulls something crazy out of his ass. Having said that, I don't think Faker versus Jensen is going to be the end-all, be-all here. I don't think it's going to be what ends up deciding the game. I think Faker's the new StarCraft 2 pro player, right? Like, he's good. He micros well still, but he's no longer the most impressive player on his team. The most impressive thing about Faker is the fact that he can just macro the shit out of his team. He can micro the shit out of his team. He can tell them exactly where they need to be. He gets them to play together, and he's just that good, man. He's just that good in that sense. But in terms of actual in-game play showcasing, I don't think it's going to matter too much. I mean, maybe Jensen makes a mistake here trying to prove himself, or maybe Faker actually does outplay him. I don't think in general, though, this matchup's going to be decided by Jensen versus Faker, though. Gumayusi versus Keria is going to be rough, I think. I know that Busio and Masu are very, very known for trying to play lanes aggressively and trying to look for advantages. And sometimes, a lot of the time even, in the LCS in North America, it kind of bites them in the butt. But you know what? That is fine. They're learning. They're figuring out what's their ceiling, what's their floor, what maximum output they can do on something, what's the minimum output they can do on something. That's all well and good. You're learning. However, I really, really feel like that if they're going to limit test against Gumayusi and Keria, these games will be real fast 20-minute FFs go next. So I would like to just kind of see, hey, stick to the fundamentals. Get in there, get your CS in, don't get shoved in too badly, and if you're getting shoved in badly, like be very clear with Inspired about it, that hey, a dive may be coming. Yeah, like just don't let yourself get knocked out of the game. Don't do what game was it? It was FlyQuest. It was the first game versus NRG, where basically we did not get the wave shoved into NRG's tower, and who he held the wave, and Masu was at like 4 CS, and that was it, right? Like, just don't let that happen. Like, I'm fine if, and this is going to hurt Inspired's game a little bit, which I think is going to hurt the overall capabilities of FlyQuest winning this series. But I think really, if you're playing against T1, just take it as a learning moment, figure out how to lane against them, and have Inspired start topside and path downwards. Just do not get dived. Do not get the lane completely smashed and ended before it even starts. I just want to see this team, even if they're coming in with a disadvantage, they're down CS, they're down tempo. I want to see this team be able to make it to the mid game and try and make plays. That's what I want to see, because you know what? That's where Masu thrives. He finds those little niche moments in team fights. He finds those clutch timings. That's the stuff that I want to be able to see. So if that means Inspired has to path downwards and it makes it very obvious in terms of jungle pathing and it kind of hurts Bwipo, it's fine. I expect Bwipo to be able to hold his own. He's a veteran. He knows what to do. I just really want to make sure the bot lane is taken care of so that way we can make mid games and late games. And even if we lose there, that's fine. But that's the experience that I want Masu and Busio to be able to learn, is how do you play the mid game? How do you play the late game? Because you know what? You don't kill the Nexus in the early game. You kill the Nexus in the mid to late game. So that's what I'm hoping for. So yeah, having said all that, I will be honest. I'm really hoping we get a win against T1. It would be cool to even win the series, but I especially don't think that's happening. But I really do think this will probably be an 0-2 for us. And you know what? That's fine. I know FlyQuest fans are going to be really, really upset. Like, man, why can't we compete? Why can't we beat these Korean teams? Why can't we beat these Chinese teams? Why can we not beat these Eastern teams? And maybe this is like the league veteran to me. I've been watching this freaking esport for over a decade now. I don't really care about the teams too much anymore. I'm extremely interested and invested in seeing new upcoming talent do well. And for me right now, that's Masu and Busio. I really want to see these guys learn and do well. And then you know what? Come Worlds, because you got an international appearance under your belt and you got the international experience from that, and you go into summer and hopefully you run it back and you do well, and hopefully this time you can get a title, because that would be great. And then you show up again at Worlds. And you know what? Worlds is the bigger tournament anyway. And you show up there and you're looking like a actual bot lane that is someone that you should be worried and scared about. That's what I want to see. This is the first time on the international stage. They're going to get their butts beat a little bit. It's okay. I'm fine with it. As long as Bwipo, Inspired, and Jensen hold their ground, and maybe Inspired handholds the bot lane a little bit, and that weakens the overall team, that's fine. I'm really, really hammering home. I just want to see the experience gain for Masu and Busio. Because if those two can get the experience gain, imagine how good it will be when Masu and Busio are on the same level and a performance that Bwipo, Inspired, and Jensen can put out. That can be a very, very scary team. I really, really, really scary. This team's already kind of scary in the mid to late game because Masu can really show up then. But imagine a laning phase where Masu and Busio are consistently winning. Sheesh. Any rats? There's always rats. Rats everywhere. All right. Having said that, sorry, FlyQuest. I'm predicting the 0-2, right? So we're back down to here. FlyQuest is here. You got PSG versus Estral. I don't know. I think this actually could be an interesting matchup. I'm giving it to PSG. I think they're the better team, but I think it's kind of the same vein as Fnatic matches over here on the Group B, right? It's probably just going to go in favor of the higher seeded team, but I could see a world where it's interesting, right? So having said that, I think it's just another rematch versus PSG for the qualification. And man, that's what's terrifying, right? Is you come in and you don't have the momentum. You just got beat by T1. And PSG's feeling good after beating Estral. You got on stage, you got to win. It's all good, baby. Feeling great. I'm going to take this one now, right? And you're coming off of losing to T1 going, oh, man, that sucks. And you're really trying to reinforce in your mind, like, and if you got a good mental, right, it doesn't matter. But there's always that kind of thing in the back of your mind, like, oh, man, I just lost. Like, I know I beat these guys earlier, but I just lost. Like, I got to get back in the good mindset. It's hard. So, at the end of the day, I know I predicted Fly to beat PSG 2-1 on the first round, right? So, like, right here. Will they do it again here? I'm going to say that Fly has the advantage in both of these matchups no matter what. I think, really, it's going to come down to strategy. And I think Fly is smart enough to be able to figure it out and do it, and they can make it through. But something else that I've neglected to talk about this entire time. Arkham. So throw versus PSG so we can get at the rematch. Actually, maybe. I would not mind seeing the momentum run. I would be kind of, because also here's the other thing. We then get Jose Dioto versus FlyQuest this way. This is the only way it really happens, because I don't see a world of Estral beating T1. So, yes, actually, I'm kind of down. If we want to throw the first match versus PSG to get the match versus Jose Dioto, and then use that momentum, win against them, and go against PSG, and then win it, bet. Perfect. Let's send it. Yeah. So, something I was neglecting, though, to mention was there's a bit of a different roster going on with FlyQuest. And that would be Mr. Arrow here. This spot originally belonged to Richard, and we're not going to get into the details about it or anything, but Richard is gone now. Richard was the assistant coach and was a very, very heavy part of the drafting for FlyQuest. And I thought generally throughout the whole season, or the whole split, FlyQuest drafting was solid. Some interesting stuff here and there, but what team doesn't have some interesting stuff every now and then? But I would say there was a notable difference in how we drafted in the finals. And that is the one series that Richard was not there for. So I'm very, very curious to see how our drafts look going into this tournament. That is the one factor I am extremely, extremely nervous about. Because at the end of the day, I think if we come in here, and even if Inspired's playing his ass off, and Bwimpo's playing his ass off, and Jensen's playing his ass off, and Masu and Busio level up and are still performing, like, you can get wins that way. But, like, if we're just having some really questionable drafts, if we're missing bans, I don't have faith in FlyQuest to do well this tournament. So, I don't know. I don't know what the new role management is looking like for FlyQuest staff and coaches, and who's doing the drafting and who's doing what exactly. But I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt and say that due to the turmoil that was kind of going on behind the scenes with Richard and the short notice of Arrow, not to say that Arrow doesn't have an idea of meta and what things should look like, but I have to imagine that the research that was being done on opposing teams and whatnot for drafts was kind of also in Richard's repertoire of job duties. And so hopefully Arrow's been able to take up that mantle and will be able to perform going forward. So, yeah. Anyway, I think that's about it. I'm pretty much expecting T1 to go through, easy 2-0s all the way through. I won't say I'm expecting Fly to go through, but I will say I'm hoping Fly goes through, because I'm not expecting PSG to go through either. Like, that's just a straight coin toss on who shows up on the day, really. I don't think Estrel's probably going to go 0-2 in my prediction. Top Esports versus Brazil, not an issue. Most likely versus Fnatic afterwards. Fnatic always has issues against Chinese squads. It'll probably be Top Esports going through. And then Loud versus Gam. I really don't know what this Gam squad is going to look like. I'm expecting to be the worst squad at this tournament. But, I mean, you never know. It's VCS. Vietnamese players can get scrappy sometimes. But at the end of the day, I think Brazil should come through on that one. And then I think Brazil versus Fnatic or Loud versus Fnatic can be fun and interesting. But at the end of the day, it's still Europe versus Brazil. Maybe Loud takes a game off. You never know. But in general, I just favor Fnatic there. So other than that, I think that's about it. Obviously, Gen.G, Bilibili, G2, and Team Liquid are waiting for teams in the main bracket. We'll end up seeing who gets drawn to what, but if I'm really, really being honest, I don't think it's going to get super interesting past that point. I think really at that point, what everyone's going to be waiting for is, can we get a G2 versus Team Liquid? Can we get a FlyQuest versus G2? Can we get a Fnatic versus FlyQuest? Or any version of EU versus NA is, I think, what we're going to be hoping for, right? So I think that's about it. I'm going to wrap it up there, guys. I mean, at least YouTube editing-wise, I'll probably just cut it right around here. But I can